All right, so a little bit about technique. I wouldn't try to cover all techniques, if you will, in one video. But to our discussion about playing lightly and quietly, it takes a little more nuance to play a note that that you just barely, with this, your right hand, your pick, and your index or whatever finger, you just barely enough barely enough to get sound. And this is kind of frustrating to do at first and seems a little impractical, but essentially what it's going to do is make you focus more, because I think it takes more focus to play lightly than loudly. Or it takes more focus to use just the right amount of effort and no more. And so it's much easier to just press hard, and pick hard and get your sounds all day long. That's easy, but it never is going to teach you about dynamics. And it's never going to teach you about fluidity. And ultimately, fluidity is what you're after, because if you're fluid, you can slow down, stop, harder, softer, whatever it is. The capability of your muscles are there because they're not contracted. And so keeping them at a fluid state, even when you are playing hard and fast, is the ultimate goal. So enough of philosophy there. So to just a couple of things to do to get started with this, and I think you already have gotten started, but a couple of things to do that are going to be practical. And so the first thing I would approach is where we're getting problems with picking is going from the second string to the first string and then back. Because we're crossing over a string, we're not continuing our same direction, we're going one way and then another. It could be up and then down or vice versa. But often for guitar players, since we like to play licks, we end up in a scenario where we are going from the second string to the first string and back, or we're just starting from the first string and going back to the first string. But it happens a lot with guitar. Most of us don't have problems with the string-to-string application or alternate picking, but I also don't alternate pick, and I'll only speak about that a little bit this time. But back to two things that are practical, and I'm not going to get real theory about this, maybe a little, but not much, because this is about technique and not theory. But essentially, choose anywhere on the fretboard you want. I think the further down the fretboard you choose, the harder it is to play. So when I practice something, I'm always doing something at F, because it's the booger to play. But to get started on this, you may not want to choose the most challenging location on your fretboard. So if A is fine or G is fine, I'll do A. Everybody knows where that's at. And basically you're just going to take 4 notes. That's it. If you want to think of your 2/4 shape, you're looking at 1, 2, 5, and 6. And what you want to do is start on Re, or 2, with a down pick. And my volume's up so you can hear it. I am barely hitting, I'm almost missing it. Barely touching that string and barely pressing down with my ring finger, barely. But down, up, and then 6 is going to be an upstroke, and 5 is going to be a downstroke. It's going to go 2, 1, 6, 5. And this pick motion is going to go down, up, down. Down, up, up, down. And don't go for speed. I have a problem not speeding up, because when there's fluidity there, you get excited and you want to play faster. But slow. When you have that, move it. It doesn't have to be in time, just move it somewhere else. And right hand and left hand in sync. The amount of pressure I'm putting down here is the same amount I'm putting up here. These two are directly the same. I'm not picking hard here and light here, or hard here and light there. It's light, 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 light. Down, up, up, down. Down, up, up, down. One reason why that would be applicable is because you've got some great chord tones or scale tones there with 1, 2, 5, and 6. And could go on forever with licks out of just that little box. Just don't ever call it a box. But there again, do it in A, do it in G, do it in F if you want. You can do it in E. I've never tried. That's going to take a second. A, B, wherever you want to go. Now I got to work on E. So it's practical in the sense that you just go on and on about how you might lead into a lick, manipulating the scale in that way. So again, down, up, up, down, down, up, up. I'm going to turn my volume down a little bit here. Down, up, up, down, down, up, up, down, down, up, up, down. Again, as light as possible. What happens is when you speed up, you put more effort into it. When you put more effort into it, you cinch more on the fretboard. And if light and quiet is always the driving factor, then you're kind of you're a slave to that and not speed. But the speed will happen, so it's counterintuitive. Where it can get fun is when you learn this, whatever scale you like to use the most. I'm guessing that's minor pentatonic. When you take the notes from that scale and you just apply them to 2 strings, and then using your education to add notes to the scale because they exist, just not in that scale, but they're there. For instance, 2 in minor pentatonic is not in that scale. You have 1 flat 3, but bet your bottom dollar 9 is there and you can use it, unless some composer or songwriter is saying don't play a 9 because I'm singing there or whatever. But you can add a note, and I'm adding 6 to minor pentatonic, and then I could go flat 3, 2, flat 7, 6, and I could go 4, flat 3, 1, flat 7. So you kind of figure out these patterns, add a distortion pedal, add some bends, hammer-ons and pull-offs, and you're rocking, man. And so that's basically it, those 2 items. The second one being going from the second string to the first and back, which even though I just did, you also want to try in a 3-note pattern on the second string and a 1-note pattern on the first string. So we get, and it could be 1, 2, 4 or 1, 3, 4. It would depend where I'm at in the scale. If I'm in minor pentatonic, well, I got 5 and flat 7 here, so I might as well play the 6. So I got down, up, down, and then I down right into the first string. Down, up, down, down. So the question is, when I come back, what do I do? Do I skip over the B string and then play a downstroke, or do I just sweep and play another upstroke? And what I do is I play another upstroke. I don't believe in crossing over a string to come back and play it. The reason why people do that is they can find consistency, and it's harder to do a sweeping motion in that sense, but it's more efficient, and that's what I look for. And so 3 notes on the B string, 1 on the E string, back to the B string. You get down, up, down, up, up, down, up. Here's where it's going to change, and it's going to alternate every other time. Up, down, up, down, up. So there's 2 ways to get to the E string, and only 1 way to come back from the E string. The 2 ways to get there is starting the 3-note pattern with a downstroke, down, up, down, down, or up, down, Either way, however I've gotten to that first string, I've gotten there by a downstroke, and I'm going to come back to the B string with an upstroke. The difficulty people have is when they go try to do this and they go downstroke, they hit the first string trying to upstroke to the B string. And trying to upstroke is what technique happened. I think Paul Gilbert said, well, I'll just cross over it so I have a bigger motion away from the strings, and then I'll downstroke the B string. You can do that too. It would look like this. But otherwise, what I'm suggesting is 3 notes on the B string, 1 on the E. You can either start on a downstroke for the 3 notes, down, up, down, down, or go up, down, up, down. The way back after you've played that first string is going to be the same. It's going to be up. There, now I'm trying to play as lightly as I can barely play those strings. And I haven't warmed up, or I don't play licks anymore or practice them, unfortunately. I love playing them. But those are the 2 exercises that I would start with to work on this light, quiet feel. Not trying to do a whole scale. I mean, that's great too. But you really want to hone in on the technique. Even if it's just the picking of 1 note, I'm going to pick until I can just barely have to press. And now I have a full tone, and I'm barely picking. And even if I release my wrist on my right hand, I'm barely touching that string, and I'm barely with my left hand. Barely touching. So just keep that in mind. Quiet, slow. And it's not the theory will go slow to be fast. Well, that is always applies. What I'm trying to speak to is to be quiet, intentional, and focused. And I promise you, after a month, I don't know, whatever it is, something as simple, which can be hard at first, is this kind of thing. Will speed up. And the last thing I'll probably say is, and this is a little to Chuck's point about sipping wine in a hot tub in California, talking about Aikido. I believe there is an energy when you play slowly and quietly and efficiently and with fluidity. And what I do to harness or capture that into my being is I just stay slow with it. Even slower. But you're looking for clear picking, clear left hand, no, like open strings, those kinds of things. And you want to get into that groove to where you're not having any space between the notes, like you want it to be from one note to the next. So check those things out.